Welcome to the MSJC Internet Authoring Videocast.
In Module 8, you'll learn about creating effective web pages. In Session 8.1, you will learn to define HTML and understand how it works. How to create an HTML document. How to use tags, attributes, and anchors. Add images and links to an HTML document, and create styles in an HTML document. The first version of HTML was developed in 1989 by Tim Berners-Lee and Robert Cailliau while they were working at CERN, the European Laboratory for Particle Physics, on a project to improve the laboratory's document handling procedures. Berners-Lee eventually transformed the initial work into the markup language that is now known as HTML. HTML quickly became the language used to create web pages because of its simplicity and portability, which made it compatible with many operating systems and on different types of devices. HTML quickly evolved through specifications that are the result of the collective work of the organization known as the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C. You can find them at w3.org. The W3C establishes specifications, or sets of standards, that identify how a web browser interprets HTML code so that different apps and devices will interpret HTML correctly and consistently. The specifications are voluntary, but because the success of the website depends on the browser's ability to follow the specifications, most organizations adhere to them as much as possible. The current specification is HTML5, which is supported by most all browsers. A markup language is a general term that indicates the separation of the formatting of a document and the content of a document. As we said, the World Wide Web Consortium, or the W3C, establishes specifications or sets of standards that identify how a browser interprets the HTML code. The Hypertext Markup Language 5, or HTML5, is the most recent markup language specification from the W3C. It makes it so that the web content is more consistently delivered to all devices that are connected to the Internet. The Extensible Markup Language, XML, and the Extensible Hypertext Markup Language, XHTML, are other popular markup languages used to describe the format and structure of data. The Hypertext Markup Language is the most basic building block of the web. Using an HTML file extension identifies the file as an HTML document. Other technologies besides HTML are generally used to describe a web page's appearance and presentation, CSS, or functionality and behavior, JavaScript. HTML is not case-sensitive, but you should stick to using only one case, either all lowercase or all uppercase, or mixed case. All lowercase is preferred. HTML specifications that are not included when newer specifications are released are referred to as deprecated, which essentially means that it's being removed from the language and you're not recommended to use it anymore. HTML tags are used to mark up a document's content in order to give the content structure and semantics, or meaning. The combination of the HTML tag or tags and its content is referred to as an HTML element. Generally, elements are either normal with an opening tag and a closing tag, such as an opening P tag followed by some text and a closing P tag, or void, such as the BR or break tag. Notice how the closing tags and the empty tags use a / to indicate that it's the end of the element. Comments can also be made using this format, an open angle bracket, exclamation point -- followed by the comment text, and then 2 dashes and a right angle bracket. It's referred to as a comment element. We'll demonstrate this more in depth in a little bit. Some tags include attributes that specify additional information about the marked up content. Some attributes are optional, some are not. Here's a graphic representation of an H1 element. Notice that from the left angle bracket all the way to the far right angle bracket, everything in between is referred to as the HTML element. So it begins then with the left angle bracket followed by the tag name, which in this case is an H1 or a heading level 1 element. And in this opening tag, we also have an attribute, which is an ID attribute, and it's being assigned a value of heading 1. This ID attribute can be used to automate the creation of a table of contents, where users click the heading 1 link in the table of contents and then are taken to this heading in the HTML document. After the attribute, you see the right angle bracket. That completes the opening H1 tag. Then we have the content node, which is the actual content that we're marking up in the document. That will be the text that is displayed in the web browser window. And then the HTML element is completed with a closing tag using the left angle bracket / the tag name and the right angle bracket. So to reiterate, just notice that the HTML element is an H1 element and it's marking up content that is the text that reads heading text. Here's a more in-depth document. In fact, this is your assignment for Module 8. This shows you an overview of an HTML document with the source code on the left, and then the representation of that HTML code in the web browser on the right. The first line in the HTML document is the document type declaration, which informs the web browser which version of HTML the source code is written in. This should always be the first line of an HTML document, and technically it's not an HTML tag but a preprocessor directive. The opening HTML tag identifies the beginning of the HTML document, which includes two sections, the head and the body. Every HTML document starts with the opening HTML tag to indicate that it is the beginning of an HTML document. The opening head tag identifies the beginning of the head section. General information about the document is placed in between the opening and closing head tags, like the title element and, in this example, an HTML comment. The contents of the title element will display in the web browser's tab, and the content is ignored by the web browser because comments are text used for the page developers to make comments or notes about the page. The head section ends with the closing head tag. Notice the addition of the / character, identifying the end of the head section. The second required section in an HTML document is the body section, which includes the opening and closing body tags. The body section contains all of the content that will be displayed in the web browser's window. The opening H1 tag identifies the beginning of the heading level 1 element, which contains an IMG or image element. Notice that the opening H1 tag has a style attribute added to it. The style attribute is used to embed cascading style sheet formatting information that the web browser will apply to the H1 element, in this case centering its contents, the image, in the web browser's window. The IMG element has an SRC attribute, short for source, that identifies the name of the image file that the web browser will display. The image tag also has an alt attribute, which is used by a software program called a screen reader, which is used by vision-impaired people to be able to read a web page. The alt text will be read by the screen reader to inform the vision-impaired person what the image displays on the screen. It is a requirement of the American with Disabilities Act that all images embedded in web pages must include alt text with a description of the image. In this case, the alt text is the key prominent text that is displayed in the image. Notice that the image tag has no closing tag, as it is a type referred to as a void or self-closing tag. And again, notice the / just before the closing angle bracket of the image tag, which is followed by the closing H1 tag to indicate the end of the H1 heading. Next is a heading level 2 element, which uses a style attribute to center the text and display it with the color red. By the way, all HTML heading elements create bolded text. That can be modified by styles or even the user by changing the settings in their web browser. After the H2 element is a paragraph element which encapsulates the bulk of the text on this page. Notice it has an emphasis or EM tag to make the text "Officer Miller is offering these classes for free" italicized. It will also make a screen reader apply emphasis to the text when it is read to the vision-impaired person viewing the page. Notice too that there is a strong tag used to make the date of the event display as bolded text. And it also tells the screen reader to apply a stronger voice to the text when it is read. The paragraph text ends with a closing paragraph tag. Following the paragraph text is an unordered list or UL element which contains 3 list elements. The first list element uses an anchor tag to create a hypertext link that the viewer of the page will be able to click on to view a page with the file name elder.html. After the end of the UL element, there is a closing body tag to indicate the end of the body section. And then finally, there's a closing HTML tag to indicate the end of the HTML document. And there you have the basics of how to write source code to create an HTML document, which will be processed by a web browser. Here are some tips for writing good HTML. Use line breaks and indented text to make sure that your HTML files are easier to read. If you think back to the previous slide, that was done there. Insert comments into your HTML file to document your work. Enter all tag and attribute names in lowercase. Place all attribute values in quotes. Close all two-sided tags. Make sure that nested elements do not cross. Use styles in place of presentational attributes whenever possible. Use logical elements to describe an element's contents. And use physical elements to describe the element's appearance. When planning a web page, you can create web pages using a text editor or a program that includes multiple features for working with web pages and websites. When you use a text editor to create a web page, you can type the content of the web page and the tags that you need to format the content. When you use a web page creation program, the program creates all of the necessary tags to format the page. When you convert a document such as a Word document to an HTML document, such as using the Save As command, the tags are inserted into the converted document, but with a lot of baggage, so it's not recommended. Beginning web page developers should use web-safe fonts, which are common on all devices, because the fonts that are available on your computer are not always the same ones that are available on everybody else's computers. Web browsers ignore blank lines and white space in HTML code, so including blank lines and white space to make your code easier to read is encouraged. The DTD, or Document Type Declaration, is a one-sided tag that tells the browser which syntax version of the markup language your document uses. If the document type declaration is omitted in the HTML document, the browser renders the page using what's known as Quirks mode. In Quirks mode, a browser renders most basic content correctly, but it's not guaranteed. There are 6 level headings in HTML. So when you're creating headings on a page, you always want to start with the highest level, H1 tags. Attributes may be added to your tags. When inserting and formatting a paragraph, content can be added to your web page by copying text from a document and inserting it between the open paragraph and closed paragraph tags. And then you can enclose your text in additional tags like the strong tag and the emphasis tag to make other changes to the text, such as changing the text to bold or italic. HTML supports 3 kinds of lists. You've already seen the bulleted or unordered list, where the items are identified with some sort of a symbol to the left. A numbered list or an ordered list identifies the items in sequential order. And in a definition list, the items are usually associated with their definition. In HTML, an image is any file that contains a picture, a logo, or a computer-generated file. To include an image in a web page, it must be stored as a file. The height and width attributes describe the image's height and width in pixels. A pixel is a single point in an image. A relative path specifies the file's location relative to the location of the current file. An absolute path specifies a file's location with absolute precision. There is no reference to the current file. The HTML tag that creates hypertext links or hyperlinks is the anchor tag or A tag. It's a 2-sided tag. It includes an href attribute, short for HTTP reference, which specifies the file name of the target page. The most common use of hyperlinks is to connect different web pages in a website together. The page that opens when a hyperlink is clicked is called the hyperlink's target or target page. The web page that contains the hyperlink is called the source page. The syntax of a hyperlink that connects a source page with a target page is as follows. In the opening anchor tag, you have a left angle bracket followed by the A, and then the href attribute, which defines the target page that the browser will go to when the user clicks the link. And then after the right angle bracket is the actual content or the text that the user will see on the page that they will click on. And then we have the closing anchor tag. Most browsers underline hyperlinks and display them in a blue font so that they are easy to identify on a web page, but that can all be changed with styles. When a hyperlink is used to link to a location on the same page, it is sometimes called a bookmark. You can create a hyperlink at any time during your web page development. It is important to make sure that the page is stored in the correct location when creating the link. Be sure to test all of your links, both before and after the web page is published, to be sure that it worked as expected. A cascading style sheet, or CSS, is a file ending with the extension .css. It contains all the formatting instructions used in a particular website, although you can have multiple style sheets in a website. It allows a developer to separate the content of a site from its formatting instructions. Just imagine a website that has hundreds of pages, and all of those pages contain an H1 element where you embedded the style information as being the color of red. Now the client comes back to you and says that they prefer the color to be blue or green. In that case, you would have to go to every document and make the change from red to the new color. When using a style sheet, you can simply identify H1 elements and the styling color that you want to apply within the single sheet and link all of the web pages to that style sheet. Then when you go to make the change, you only have to make the change in one place, the style sheet. Changing the instructions for a web page element in a CSS file changes the formatting for that element in all web pages that are linked to that CSS file. An inline style, which was demonstrated to you previously, is contained in the HTML document itself, such as enclosing a word or a phrase in bold tags or using the style attribute in an opening tag. An internal style sheet, also known as an embedded style sheet, creates a set of formatting instructions that affects the tags in a single HTML document. There is a third type, which is the external style sheet, which is recommended for most websites. If you liked this video, please click the like button and leave us a comment down below. I also would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are posted.